Hello, good evening. I am going to invite everyone on the panel to turn back on their videos and their audios. Can you confirm that you're hearing me now? I just changed my audio settings.
I
Lovely.
can hear you.
We have some really strong rain.
Yeah.
Coming down here in Barbados. Sorry, I'm having a audio feedback. Okay, so we're on. So it is 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone who has joined us here today. I know that we will have quite a number of participants joining us as we go ahead, but I also want to be very mindful of everyone's time that you have come to share with us. So, to introduce myself, my name is Noemi White, and as the current president of the Barbados Society of Psychology, I have the honor of welcoming you here this evening. The Barbados Society of Psychology is an organization of psychologists and other mental health professionals with the objective of promoting and maintaining the professional standard of psychology as a discipline in Barbados. Among other goals, it is important to us to build connections with the government, with non-governmental organizations, and with individuals in the community for continued awareness and education towards mental wellness. So every year, we host what we call Psychology Week, and it's a compact week of events for students, for our own members, and for the public. This year, in 2020, it's actually our 8th Psychology Week, which has adapted the theme from World Mental Health Day, which was on October 10th, Psychology for All. And this led to the title of this evening's webinar, Mental Health for All, Mental Health Today, despite the COVID-19 crisis. So needless to highlight, the 2020 global pandemic has deeply shaken us. It has shaken us as individuals, families, companies, communities, and nations. As we all grapple with the huge change and as we are potentially affected by intense emotional experiences such as anxiety, grief, despair, uncertainty, loss, fear, anger, and so forth, it is important to know that all of us also have a lot of resilience inside of us, that we have sometimes even untapped internal resources, and that we can develop strategies to help ourselves in times of distress, so that we may promote and maintain our own psychological well-being in our day-to-day lives, and therefore also assist others around us. So I hope that today's discussion will bring about the opportunity to add one or two helpful tools to our own self-help toolbox, so that we may continue to weather the storm along with our loved ones, and that we may walk towards tomorrow with a sense of hope and confidence. So at this point, I would like to introduce you to our Mistress of Ceremonies, who will in turn have the pleasure of introducing you to our esteemed panelists this evening. So at this point, I am introducing the charming Dr. Soraya Daya. She's an educational and child psychologist in Barbados, a private practitioner and temporary lecturer of the Universities of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. She has also been the treasurer of the Barbados Society of Psychology for the past 2 years. Over to you, Dr. Daya.
Thank you, Noemi, and welcome everyone. Without further ado, I think we should just get to presenting, going on with the presentations that we have for you guys. So first, I would like to introduce Richard Adderley. He is a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in the areas of organizational wellness and public health psychology. Born on the island of Cat Island, he is the oldest son of veteran educators, the late James Adderley and Wendy Adderley. He is a 1977 graduate of Queen's College and the current head of Department for Psychology, Sociology, and Social Work of the University of the Bahamas. Richard completed his doctoral studies at the University of South Carolina and later earned a law degree from the University of Wolverhampton in the United Kingdom. He specializes in helping organizations improve productivity by enhancing human performance. His focus areas include strategic on-the-job coaching for managers, work personality assessment and performance coaching, leadership assessment, and situational leadership. His current professional research focuses on workplace stress, bullying in the workplace, and organizational resilience. Richard and his wife Opal are the parents of 3 young adults, Kai, Kess, and Caden, and his hobbies include traveling and genealogy. Hi, Richard, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am great, I'm so honored to have been asked to present, and I have a short presentation for you, and then we're gonna be able to open it up for questions. Let me just share my screen and we will get going.
Great.
Okay, so everyone should be able to see my screen?
Yes, Richard.
Okay, okay, fantastic. Okay, so I want to take you down memory lane. I started working back in psychology in 1982. And I remember the attitude in the workplace at the time was that if you had problems, you left them at the door when you came to work. And I accepted this for about a year or so until my mother was diagnosed with cancer and later died. And this was such a horrific experience for me that I questioned the reality of whether or not employees can leave problems at the door when they show up to work. And since 1984, I have been a proponent of mental health in the workplace. I sincerely believe that it's very difficult for you to separate problems that take place at home, because when you go to home, when you go to work, you take them with you. The same thing, problems at work, you take home with you. And so since 1992, I have been in the field of employee assistance programming. I provide counseling and psychological mental health to persons who continue to work but are experiencing distress and discomfort in the workplace. So if you take a look at what's happening globally, it is estimated that work-related stress, depression, or anxiety accounts for 44% of work-related ill health and 54% of working days lost. Now, these facts relate to a world that's pre-COVID. As a psychologist, one of the areas that I work in is family health and also the Diabetic Research Institute. And from time to time, we try to take a look at what's happening with our data and our statistics. And in the past 3 or 4 years, we've noticed such a tremendous increase in the number of persons who are being referred from the workplace for mental health issues. In addition, many of the persons who come in to see a general practitioner because of stuff like headaches and backaches and gastrointestinal issues, a lot of times after seeing a medical doctor, there's no real physical issue. And so they're referred into psychology because a lot of them are experiencing some stress, some anxiety, some mental health issues that are impacting them physically. Early indications suggest that the pandemic and preventative measures such as lockdown and social distancing will have a significant impact upon the mental health of employees. Here in the Bahamas, we've been on weekend lockdowns for the month of October. And there are people who are saying that it's driving me crazy. I don't know how much longer I can take it. the isolation, the not being able to continue to socialize is really becoming a problem. And so what I wanted to share with you today was that over the past 2 years, I reviewed and I looked at what are some of the issues that are driving employees into mental health counseling. And there are four major areas. The largest group of referrals have come because of job issues, starting with workplace stress, having to work long hours, having to work a heavy workload, having conflict with coworkers and especially bosses. And what we're finding is that a lot of employees would rather not come to work than have to deal with a boss. And there's a saying in the organizational workplace world that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And so we've got a lot of people who are stressed out because of having to work with people that they just don't get along with. Then there were persons who there's personal life spilling over into the workplace. And we'll talk about that later. Performance management. A number of referrals are identified because there's been a deterioration in how they're performing in the workplace. And there's a system where employers can refer individuals if they notice a decline in their performance. And quite often, as we counsel and we work with these individuals with declining performance, we realize that there's some issues that are happening in their lives that they need to be able to manage better. The whole lack of control, having to work in areas where employees feel that they have no control, and then coping with uncertainty. And the pandemic has brought on a lot of uncertainty. There are lots of people who have high levels of stress because they're not sure whether or not they're going to be employed next week. They're not sure how they're going to be able to pay their bills, and just this anxiety that's brought on by job insecurity. And then the second largest group of persons who are seen for workplace mental health issues fall under personal emotional mental health. And these are people who are susceptible to bouts of depression, anxiety, grief management. They've lost, family members, close friends, having problems sleeping, and then coping with the developmental problems in children. There are persons who have children who are autistic, and the stress of having to work and having to find daycare and having to even stay at home with them is a major challenge. And then there are persons who just need ongoing mental health support. There's some underlying mental health issues, and they need to just stay engaged in counseling and psychotherapy in order to just get through year by year. And then the third area, 21% of our referrals are persons who have experienced relationship issues that are affecting their productivity at work. And these are usually the parent-child issues, the marital relationship with discord, acute stress, family management, blended families, child and parent care, school problems, and especially with COVID, we've had so many referrals from mothers and fathers who are forced now to work from home, but in the process, they have to take care and homeschool. So you've got kids using internet for school. You've got parents who are working all day long from home. And then it's just a total mess because many of the homes were not built to accommodate working from home and also homeschooling. And then we've got the typical conduct disorder, the mother who can't concentrate at work because her child has been locked up, or her child is on drugs, or her child has left home. And so we've got all of these issues, and they're affecting the way that they perform on the job. And then finally, we've got post-traumatic issues. Many of you would have known that last year, in 2019, the Bahamas was hit with Hurricane Dorian. And then we've got COVID-19. And so there are persons who were just adjusting, just getting used, just recovering from Dorian. There were persons who on the island of Abaco had to relocate to the island of New Providence. And New Providence is city, Abaco is like country. And so a lot of persons who were moved had to receive counseling because just making the adjustment from island life to city life. Dealing with property insurance issues, losing everything. I talked with a couple today who had lost everything. They left the island with no clothing. Everything that they'd worked for their entire life was lost. And just when Hurricane Dorian, the first anniversary, we also had to deal with COVID-19. And there are people who are grieving. There are people who have lost loved ones. There are people who are angry because they've been exposed in the workplace. There are people who are depressed because of isolation. There are persons who are depressed because they're working from home. For some people, this is the longest that they've been able to stay home for any extended period of time. There's the fear, there's the anxiety and the panic attacks. We had a client last week who just shared with us that she lost total control because she returned to work and they had asked her to go back and work in the same area where she thinks that she caught the COVID-19. And then there's the guilt that many parents and workers, employees are feeling, because the thing is that they feel guilty that they could possibly take the COVID virus home and spread it to family and friends. And so if you begin to look at these issues, in the past 2 years, we've seen almost 250 persons, and that is the breakdown that we see. It's very, very close. The issues on the job still seems to be the largest, but the others are very, very close. And what it really means is that, again, we cannot separate what's happening in our personal life and in our home and in our work life. And so there's a call for workplaces to begin to think seriously about providing mental health in the workplace. So a lot of places say this is not bring your problems to work day. This is just work day. I believe that if we can get persons to identify their problems in the workplace, then we have a better chance of helping them to deal with their issues and to become better workers. And so with that, I turn it back over to the other panelists, and I will await questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Richard Adderley. Very interesting presentation indeed. I do quite like, and I'm interested in hearing more about that home work-life balance, or not bringing the problems to work, and how workplaces will even address how to approach mental health within their own organization. That is very interesting, but we will leave all of these questions to the second half of the webinar. And I will just like to invite all of the attendees here tonight to use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions. And as it goes on, you can submit your questions and you can keep them coming in. And at the second half of the webinar, after all of the presenters have presented, we will try to answer the questions as best as we can. So thank you, Dr. Richard Adderley. Very interesting indeed. Now on to Dr. Ina Trotman-Jemmett. She's a chartered psychologist in Barbados and the UK, holding a postgraduate Master's of Science degrees in Occupational and Organizational Psychology and Clinical and Community Psychology from the University of East London in the UK. Her research degree is from the University of Huddersfield in the UK. Her most recent work and research has centered on gender-based violence in the Caribbean. This includes child sexual abuse, domestic violence among marginalized groups of women, where the experiences and opinions of non-abused men on these subjects were included. Part of the domestic violence research included a national survey on school children's perceptions and experiences of violence, together with the development of a serious computer game as an intervention for change. That is, to raise awareness of the impact of domestic violence, to increase empathy, and to promote nonviolent problem-solving skills among children. Her most recent co-authored book is entitled Treating Sexual Abuse in Family, Group, and Clinical Settings, Culturally Intelligent Practice for Caribbean and International. Well done. Hi, Dr. Ina Trotman-Jemmett. Welcome.
Hello.
And you're welcome to start sharing your screen when you're ready.
Yes, thank you very much, Raya. Thank you for that introduction. And hello to the fellow panelists again, and hello to all of you out there who have given up your time to come and listen to us and have some discussion. Now, I'm going to try and bring up my presentation. As I share my screen. Let's see what happens here.
And just reminding you attendees, use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions, whether that was for Richard's, Dr. Richard Adderley's presentation earlier or for the ones that are coming up. Awesome.
All right. I can't see myself anymore. So good evening once again. My topic is mental wellness in your family, in all our families in times of COVID-19.
Hi, Ina. Are you sharing your screen? Just letting you know we can't see it on our end.
Yes.
Okay.
You can't see it?
No.
Yeah, bear with me.
Try the share screen, the green button to the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I did, I thought. Let's come out of that again and get back to the Zoom.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
I think somehow I was knocked out of the Zoom.
No worries.
Here we are. We're back on. I have pressed the shared screen.
Mm-hmm. And then you select which one you want to share.
And I press my presentation. But you're not seeing it, are you?
No, not yet, unfortunately.
Not sure what is happening here. You can hear me though.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you, but we can't see your screen.
Yeah, well, I have pressed as instructed the shared screen.
I'm making sure that all panelists are allowed to share. And I know that Dr. Adderley would have unshared his. It worked well in our trial session, so I know that it's feasible.
Press it again.
If you want to try again, and if you want to email it to me, and I can maybe pull it up on my end as well.
Yes, when I press the shared screen,
yeah,
what happens is the presentation comes up, but you can't see it from what you said, yeah?
No, we can't see it.
All right, well, what I would suggest is that maybe Dr. McGill goes forward ahead of me And as you suggested, I will email the presentation to you to see if you can bring up your end, because as I said, I'm pressing the share screen, but nothing is happening.
You can email it to me, and maybe in the meantime, we can take a question as well, unless...
Yes, I will do that right away.
Okay.
So did you go to, when you share your screen, did you go to select your presentation? There's a box that comes up and you just select your presentation.
Yes, I did that,
okay.
But I will do that again. Select presentation, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't see that here.
Okay.
So in the meantime, let me email that to you, Naomi, and
yes. Guys, you can use this time to have your sip of water, your tea, or whatever beverage you have next to you.
Soraya, I sent a question as well in the chat, if you wanted to address that in the meantime.
Yes, I could do that. Dr. Adderley, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, do you mind taking a question right now?
No, that's fine.
Great, okay. So we have a question here. Have you had the possibility to engage with employees regarding their mental health of their employees? And has there been general willingness for them to make adaptations, sorry?
Now, you said employees and employees, or was it employers and employees?
Engage with their, yes, employees, yeah.
Employers to engage about employees.
Their employees, yes.
We have, and from what I can share with you, there's been 3 levels of engagement. So I'll start off with company 1 that provides a complete employee assistance program. And by that, they pay for every employee who is interested in getting help. And so the way that it's set up is that every employee in that company has access to the helpline, and they can call into the office and say that, look here, I need to make an appointment because I've got some issues. Whether, it's my family, it can be for family counseling, it can be because I'm not getting along with my supervisor, I'm anxious or whatever. And the employer is not interested whatsoever in who comes and what the issues are.
Okay.
And so we've got a comprehensive group like that, but we also have other models. There's a model where if an employee wants help, they go to the human resources department. The human resources department makes the referral. Okay. And then we also have from our clinics, because from time to time, like I mentioned with the diabetic clinic and also the family medicine clinic, what happens is that persons go there from time to time because of physical ailments, and through discussion with their general practitioner, the primary care, they are referred because they're saying that, look here, you're taking your medication, you're doing this, you're doing that, but your vitals are still not where they need to be. And so we suspect that there's some other things going on in your life, and we refer you over. And what we're finding is that more and more companies now are taking employee assistance programs at one of those levels and saying that, look, we need to ensure that that our employees are taken care of. And so, yeah, you've got 3 levels that I've worked with over the past 20 years.
Right. So is there like a pool of psychologists then that they call on?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The Bahamas Psychological Association in the past 5 years, has been the audience that most companies would call on. But many of us who are in private practice, we attach to different medical facilities. And so with employees being referred to those medical facilities, they naturally come down to us as well. So it's a combination of the Bahamas Psychological Association being the umbrella, but we also have persons who do individual practice.
Okay. I like how everyone's working together.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, together we're achieving more.
Yes.
And something that's really the COVID, this pandemic has taught us an important lesson. Well, it actually started with Hurricane Dorian in 2019, because we had to rally together. What really worked was that not only psychologists in the Bahamas, but Bahamian psychology and the diaspora who have been coming in, working, helping. Even this week, we had set up a webinar for our mental health professionals who've just been working day in, day out. And a great source of strength came from persons who worked in Boston and in Chicago. And, they're all linking in. So using Zoom and using Teams to provide mental health has been, has worked very well for us here.
That's amazing. So it's almost like we're talking about mental health in the workplace, but but you're still taking care of the mental health workers, and I love that.
and that's a big question, because I remember a couple of years ago the question was that when you've given all that you have, who do you turn to?
Exactly. We can't pour from an empty cup, right? That's my go-to saying. So, that's brilliant.
And so last week we had a group of 20 medical doctors who are part of the emergency room at our hospital. And they were talking about the stress, and they were talking about being unable to cope, and it was so rewarding for us in psychology to be able to say, hey, here's what you need to do in terms of self-care. These are some things you need to, and so so we've been banding together. And there's a tremendous need for us to continue, because our numbers have been high, and there's a lot of stress, and there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety here.
I have a little question here. They say prevention is better than cure. So how much of your time is used in preventative work?
Well, in the past couple of years, I would say the last 2 or 3 years, we've really been pushing prevention. I think prior to that, we were in treatment. But now we're beginning to see the importance of prevention. And a lot of our efforts now are preventative.
That is quite interesting, because I'm assuming when the employees do come to the employers or HR or whatever outlet, they're coming because they already have the problem, rather than it being maybe addressed from before. So rather than maybe the mental health workers going into the workplaces and, I don't know, giving presentations or offering their service, letting them know that this is there. I don't know if that's something that maybe you guys have done. Or...
we've started that. We've started that as well. And I think prior to that, the issue was that a money issue. Okay,
always Monday.
Yeah,
always the issue.
There's a money issue. Why should we pay? We're paying you a salary. We're paying 50% of your health plan. Okay, but now they're realizing that, look here, if you've got a happy worker, they're going to be more productive.
Yeah. I guess it's about creating that culture and educating the workplace on that.
Educating the workplace, yes.
Well, we do have Dr. Ina Trotman-Jemett's presentation already. So Dr. Richard Adderley, thank you for engaging. I might come back to you with some more questions. It is very interesting.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Ina. Are you there?
I am very much here.
So I will start to share my screen with your presentation.
Okay,
all right. I will tell you what to share. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll leave you to it.
Yes. They're all clearly marked, so I will tell you what next to go on to. Well, hello again. After that little glitch, such is the technology. I want to have a discussion, a conversation with you today on my topic, mental wellness in the family. This conversation with you will firstly and briefly look at some of the key aspects of COVID-19. I will then very briefly discuss how it is impacting some countries in the North and the Caribbean in the South, recognizing that COVID-19 is affecting every country in the world, reminding ourselves of the gravity of it on all of us. I will then highlight the effects on families at the macro level, the devastating socioeconomic effects, and the public health effect, and the emotional toll on mental well-being. And then I will follow this with a discussion on strategies for maintaining good mental health during these very dumbfounding times. So what I will be doing is situating my discussion within the overall meaning of COVID-19. Today, all of us, you, me, our family, friends, and others, we find ourselves in the grip of this viral pandemic, commonly referred to as COVID-19. It has no parallels in living memory, unless you're over 100 years old and remember the Spanish flu, which decimated populations. This novel coronavirus is unrelenting in its spread and disregard for status, age, ethnicity, and geographic location. Total disregard. A devastating situation in which millions worldwide continue to face serious illnesses and death, not monthly, not weekly, but daily in unprecedented numbers. In the Caribbean, this pandemic has not spared us. However, we have not faced its severity like so many of our brothers and sisters worldwide. Nevertheless, we are not immune to being severely affected by it and by its deadly grasp. We cannot and must not ever let our guard down, ever. I think it's instructive to remind ourselves of what it is we're talking about. We know it's an infectious disease caused by the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, a respiratory pathogen. The World Health Organization first learned of this new virus from cases in Wuhan, People's Republic of China, on the 31st of December 2019. The COVID-19 virus spreads primarily through droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose when an infected person coughs or sneezes. So it's important that you, me, all of us, continue to practice respiratory etiquette every day. Most people affected by the virus will not only experience mild to moderate respiratory illness, and they will recover without requiring special treatment. A quick look at some of the symptoms remind us of the seriousness of COVID-19. And if we look at the first slide, the symptoms of COVID-19, we remind ourselves that the symptoms can vary from not very severe to the very severe. This slide on symptoms of COVID-19 show us just that, which is the next slide. So that's just a quick reminder. The most common being fever, cough, fatigue, right down to the very severe symptoms, shortness of breath, loss of appetite, etc. We hear of the daily global reports, the head-spinning numbers, which are not decreasing, but increasing at alarming rates in the USA and Europe. And if we look at the next slide, we will see that CAFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, on the 19th of October, shared with us some of these head-spinning numbers. In the United States of America, at that time, there were 8,403,121 confirmed cases, and nearly 3,000 deaths. In the United Kingdom, at the moment, there are about 855,000 confirmed cases and about 45,000 deaths to date. Here in the Caribbean region, of the 33 territories that CAFA shared on, at that time, there were 254,000 approximate infections reported and approximately 4,500 deaths. Now, the Caribbean diaspora, as we know, is noticeably affected in the numbers that we see reported globally, particularly in the USA and the UK. We have family members who have been affected, and indeed, some who may have died. Now, these statistics help us to understand and realize the emotional toll on families as livelihoods and lives are lost. There is the debt burden to countries and specifically the medical and hospital services and the ongoing long-term costs of the infection. In parts of the world, such as the Caribbean, as we have said, the infection rates are a bit lower, but this is of little comfort as we too have lost lives. Of great significance here is the effect of severely restricted travel, profoundly impacting the tourism industry, impacting agriculture, food production, and other industries, large and small, on which many countries in the Caribbean and the South depend. So much of this impact on families and on their emotional well-being is, of course, completely out of their control. So if we look quickly at the next slide, we see some statements that demonstrate just that, the lack of control that families have over the economic impact worldwide. And we can come back to that at the end of the discussion or perhaps in another webinar. If we look at the next slide, that diagram helps us to understand quite clearly what I'm talking about. The worldwide devastation from COVID-19 means that there are falling remittances, there is disappearing tourism, there is shrinking borrowing possibilities, all affecting us. And that in turns mean that there are high debt servicing costs, and high reliance on food imports, etc. So this diagram, to which we can return at the end if there's time, help us to understand what we're talking about. So let's look at the effects of COVID-19 on the family. The next slide. At the individual and family level, gone, 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 close, 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 are now some of the most used words connected with businesses, places where we used to eat, shopped, worshipped, and activities in which we engage, where we socialize, where we chilled with friends and family. Little wonder that COVID-19 intersects with our mental health. Feelings of stress, worry, anxiety, and grief will be the new emotional states for many. Any exacerbation will undoubtedly cause immediate and further distress. This distress likely to then increase fear, anger, sadness, worry, numbness, and frustration. We know from the research that the pandemic can worsen situations such as poverty, loss of income, domestic violence, child abuse and neglect, internet abuse, alcohol and other substance abuse, existing mental health challenges, and the physical non-communicable disease. When we look at the relationship of COVID-19 with mental health and further abuse, it is essential that we understand and pay attention to the extent of the prevalence of violence in our society and the ways in which this will be exacerbated by COVID-19. The most recent research into domestic violence in Barbados and Grenada, and a survey of children's exposure to violence in those two countries, of which I was honored to lead on in Barbados, demonstrate the stark reality of the violence reported in families and the effects of this on members, including children. And globally, over 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years experience sexual, physical, or emotional violence each year. So one of the greatest challenges posed by this pandemic would then be how to maintain or indeed engineer access to mental health support services for children and adolescents, geared towards developing healthy coping mechanisms during this current crisis. The UN Women describe it as a shadow pandemic, where the protective lockdown measures to help prevent the spread of a global pandemic has in turn led to another pandemic, the increase of violence against women and children. They describe it as the perfect storm for controlling violent behavior behind closed doors. And in parallel, as health systems are stretching to breaking point, domestic violence shelters are also reaching capacity, a service deficit made worse when centers, domestic violence centers, are repurposed for additional COVID-19 responses. Lockdown means lockdown with the abuser. It means being trapped, being imprisoned, unable to go outside to an agency for help, to another family member not in the same household for support, to a trusted friend. In this scenario, children who are abused face the same restrictions as the adult, with closure of schools, increasing the imposed social isolation. This isolation is therefore separating the abused from the resources and the people who can help them. Different ways of offering help and intervening are needed. Remembering that the help being devised is by helpers and carers who also face many of the same restrictions and who also need encouragement and support in the work they do. And at this juncture, I would urge you to visit the UN Women's site for some comprehensive guidance and supportive documents on gender-based violence during COVID-19.
Hi, Dr. Trotman. Just giving you a little heads up on time. So
okay,
have a few minutes.
All right. Okay. So let's therefore move swiftly on to looking at the slide on strategies for maintaining good family health. What do you think is the state of your mental health right now? How do you assess it? How do you maintain it? Getting to know yourself better is important. So think on these tips. Monitor and safeguard your exposure on a daily basis to the risk of infection. Know the facts about COVID-19, the government information which is grounded in the best available scientific knowledge is freely available. It must be remembered that some of us can become more distressed than others from seeing repeated images. So be very careful as we monitor and expose ourselves. Another tip, remain connected to and focus on others. Family members who are well connected to each other can in turn reach out to others outside of their own families in ways that increase well-being on both sides. Reach out to the very vulnerable, the elderly, persons with physical challenges, and persons with disabilities. And think of the ripple effect this will have. Pay attention to the needs of children and the impact of COVID-19 on their mental health. Critically important to remember is their loss of opportunities to socialize and play outside, being stuck indoors. There's also the increased risk of cyberbullying and cyber abuse. Next tip, use the technology and use it wisely. Use it in a positive way to stay connected to others. They're the text messages, the video chats, etc. There are many apps and other tools which will not magically bestow wellness, but they are important assets. Focus on what is doable. Exercise, 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 and then do it again. Only you can decide what you're able to do, but often we can do more than we think. Stop procrastinating. Where there is more time as a result of COVID-19, utilize this time wisely. Work on self-improvement. Even in isolation, we can work on this. There are many opportunities to do this. journaling, writing down your thoughts and feelings in a book. Mental health practitioners will tell you that even writing down something, a fear, helps you to understand it better. Relax some more. This is not the now relax kind of exhortation, but taking time for quiet moments by yourself, time for listening to some calming music, time for meditation, time for a soothing shower or bath, where you remain in the moment. And then remember that we are what we eat and we become what we eat. So finally, and in conclusion, if there is time, we can talk about some of the barriers to mental health. But in conclusion, what I would say is that last slide, we have a long way to go. That other slide tells us that long way to go, but a very short time to get there. So be kind to yourself. Take time for you and your family. Seek out knowledge and learn. Reach out and care for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trotman. I agree. We do need to be a bit kinder to ourselves and have some time to have that self-care within the home, as that does impact on our children and other family members. Thank you very much. I will just pose to the attendees again. If you have any questions and answers, please use the question and answer icon at the bottom of the screen to submit them, and we will take your questions on the second half of this webinar. We will now go on to Dr. Sydney McGill. Dr. Sydney McGill is a marriage and family therapist. He holds a Doctor of Ministry degree in Theology and Family Systems, a master's degree in counseling psychology, postgraduate diplomas in clinical sexology and leadership development. He lives and counsels outdoors at Ahisma Retreat, I hope I pronounced that right, his farm in the hills of St. Anne, Jamaica. Dr. McGill is also an eco-psychotherapist who includes nature, breath work, and meditation as integral aspects of his successful counseling career. He offers individual and family counseling virtually on Zoom and other meeting platforms, and holds team building and marriage enrichment webinars regularly. Dr. McGill was formerly the president of the Family Counseling Center of Jamaica and Coalition in support of adolescent leadership training, mentoring program. He is a writer and a weekly columnist for the popular column Healthy Sex 101 in the Daily Gleaner. Welcome, Dr. McGill. Just unmute your mic.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone, and good evening. I'm going to be looking at building intimacy during the pandemic. My focus is going to be on anxiety, how anxiety operates under different circumstances. So we're going to be breaking down that into about 4 different components. Status quo, COVID as crossroad. Could we have the slides going, please? COVID as crossroad. Great, thank you. Let's move to the next slide. Yes, so COVID as crossroad is the second. The third is relationship stages. We're going to be looking at relationship stages, moving upwards, how how we can do that effectively, even during a pandemic. And at the last part, we're going to be doing tools for the journey. And we're giving you tools. In fact, doing exercises with you. So Peter, I won't be able to see you, but I'm hoping that some, if not most of you, will participate in that last segment. Okay, next slide. So what is the status quo? The past panelists have very ably described it. It has to do with what life was before the pandemic. How did we deal with our anxieties that accumulated for whatever reason because of our life activities? How we had natural ways of draining off our anxieties. Some of us use work, which is a very culturally accepted way of avoiding dealing with, say, issues at home. We use work as a form of distraction. We use social activities too, as a way of anesthetizing, our anxieties. So places where we could focus on other less emotive concerns or let our hair down and unwind, that was the norm. And then again, for some persons, the norm, especially for men with a lot of anxiety, they would have what I call a side chick, yes, or a mistress who would be a burden bearer without her knowing that, or a scapegoat. Again, she's unaware, or he's unaware. So now, all those handles that we've been using to cope with our daily relational issues have been closed, most of them closed. We're now limited. There are hardly very few avenues of reducing or draining off our anxiety. Wow. COVID as crossroad. The next slide, I decided to put a quote there from a recent public letter written by a Franciscan priest, which I was very impressed with the content of the letter and felt I should just present an excerpt from it. He says here, humanity, you are all one. You are one beloved community, and you are one global sickness. You are all contagious and always have been, unconsciously infecting and yet able to also bless one another. There are no higher and lower in this world. There is no smart or stupid, no totally right or totally wrong. The only meaningful division is between those who serve and those who allow themselves to be served. All the rest is temporary posturing. I guess we can interpret that what I've just read in many ways, but I want to focus mainly on the emotional aspect of what he's trying to say here. When he says you're all contagious, what does that mean? And always have been, unconsciously infecting and yet able to also bless one another. What he's basically saying, what Richard Rohr is saying is our actions, our choices, our connections bear more weight than we dare to believe. I dare say, not only our actions affect our intimate partners, but even the things we think. If you have negative thoughts, they will affect those persons around you. Another issue with that crossroad that the COVID has caused, it has really caused a lot of insecurity when it comes to our financial ability to provide for ourselves and our families. And so many persons I know can't pay rent 7 months in arrears with their rent, um, persons who can't pay their mortgages, persons who can't are barely surviving, and focusing on just the main important aspects of their life, which is having something to eat. So, yes, the pandemic has brought us face on with raw reality. The raw reality is that we are impermanent. The raw reality is that our mortality is very fragile. Someone else dies, but it's not us. And somehow we deny the fact that we can also go as quickly as the next person in this pandemic. Dare say, I've seen a number of persons, at least in Jamaica, using their spiritual toolkit to establish the status quo. However, I think that things will never be the same again after this pandemic has settled down. We are in a new normal. The next slide, please. Now, I want us to look at stages. But even before we go there, I want to say about the pandemic being a crossroad. I find that I'm seeing a lot more clients now because of the escalated anxiety level, which has not found a way of being draining off. And so the problem there is you have to face whatever issues in the relationship that you feel that you've been able to manage because you've always had distractions. You now have to face it, confront it. Now, confronting it can either make you better or bitter. You can learn lessons. You can learn to become more transparent and open to your partner, or you may choose, well, you know what? I need to get out of this relationship. Now, you must decide, is this relationship worth it? The pandemic is asking you to make a decision. It is a crossroad. Are you willing to try out the relationship to make it better? Or are you willing to walk away from it? Now, how are you going to assess the state of your relationship? I have there a potential, it's a table of potential stages. If you look at the bottom of the table, where it says potential stages 1, women, and then men. Most of us don't enter an intimate relationship at the bottom where the woman fears or hates and desires, but has a sexual attraction to her partner, and he just feels he wants the money to take care of him. Most of us tend to go into relationships from stage 2. She wants his approval. He wants her to make him feel good. He's into sex. And now he can have sex with very little anxiety as to whether or not he's playing around or, doing the right thing. He now has good reasons now to be in a relationship for sex. Most of us enter relationship at that stage. And hopefully, as the relationship progresses and years pass, we move into in later stages, such as stage 3. She wants to look up to him and make him take care of her. So she wants to be him to be her hero. And the man, he wants her loyalty and support. He wants a wife. Yes. So the relationship becomes a committed relationship, and usually in marriage or long-term common law relationship. Then if they're growing in the relationship, if they're becoming more transparent and open and vulnerable with increased intimacy, they move into stage 4. She wants her independence from him. while he grows through her need for independence. Now, that is where I find quite a lot of relationships begin to have issues. When she feels that she's growing up, she's growing out. Well, not necessarily out of the relationship, but she's blossoming as a human being. And she is full of potential and wants to use those potentials in, ways of service to her community. And he's accustomed to the tradition of being provider and protector. Now, where are you in the relationship, on the stages of relationship? And the final one, which we really want to try to get to over time, is she wants and meets him as an equal and opposite partner, while he values her as an equal and opposite partner. Great. So you look at the stage where you think you might be at, and you need to now look at what is it about me that needs to change that would encourage the furtherance and development of my intimate relationship. It's simple. Just ask your spouse and listen. Listen with a lot of empathy. Listen without downloading that you know why she thinks that way. Just listen from her perspective. And if you listen with a beginner's mind, you will begin to hear, see your blind side. Yes? And if you're humble enough and not so ego-driven, then ask her, help me. Ask him, help me to be better. All right. So we're moving right along. We're going to be looking at tools for the journey. Skills to control your energy. Because during the pandemic, it really increases your anxiety and physical and tension in your body. And some of us don't have the avenues or opportunities because they're so limited. We can't go to bars. You can't go and have a nice meal at a nice place with friends. You can't do those things right now. So you're now faced with the reality, the issues that you've ignored for so long. Now, you have to become more resilient. How do you become more resilient is one, well, before I start to itemize them, let's look at two words, prana and chi. Prana is an Indian term. Chi is a Chinese term. And what those two words mean is subtle life force energy. Subtle life force energy. Have you noticed if you didn't get enough sleep one day, or you're just so very tired, or you're very hungry, or even ill, that your prana tends to be pretty low, or your chi tends to be pretty low? It means then that you'll get angrier, you're far more irritable, you find you are a bit more confused, your mind isn't clear, you can't make wise decisions because you're just not at that place. You have to start learning how to control your energy. Now, how do you do that? One, and I'm telling you stuff that you already know, but I'm still telling you because it works. One, food. I want you to become a conscious eater. Yes, eat food that you like and enjoy, and it's delicious and palatable. But also remember while you're eating that the food must be balanced. It must be nutritious. It must have a sizable portion of vegetables and fruits. I dare say, if you can start trying to get to a target of 1 pound of vegetables per day, whether you eat it or blend it to drink it, it's important if you want to live long enough on this planet. It's important that you reduce the amount of red meat and meats in general and increase the amount of vegetable to get your fiber, your nutrients, and even your protein. Two, I'm saying sleep. Sleep is very, very important. You know that. Decide on a bedtime and stick to it. Yes? Do light exercises if you want, just before you go to sleep. Light exercise, some stretches, etc. And it's always good to meditate. Then, with meditation, you will maybe take you over, begin to think about the day and what went well and what didn't go so well, but still giving thanks for your day. And then we're moving on quickly. Breath. Now, breath, we're still on that. Yes, still there. Breath, prana or chi is found in the breath. It's in your entire body, but it's in your breath. Just be aware that you're breathing. It is such an important activity that we don't remember. We remember we are breathing when we are out of breath, maybe exercising, maybe frightened by something, maybe having an orgasm. And that's a time that we remember that we are breathing. I would like for you to start remembering. Just notice that you're constantly breathing. Notice when your breath changes, because your breath changes too with your emotion. And then the fourth thing that I'd like for you to remember when it comes to being resilient is your emotion, calm state of mind. And a good word is equanimity, being calm under trying circumstances. How do you do that? It takes a lot of work. Let's call it a lot of work in meditating, because you begin to watch your mind. You don't just allow your mind to just rattle off all the time and think whatever it wants to think as if it doesn't have an owner. You are the owner. You need to be able to watch. Get caught up in your thoughts, but be able to be an observer of it as well. Learn to calm your mind. And so, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Thich Nhat Hanh says that. And also physical exercise, aerobics and strength training. The data abounds with the benefit of aerobics and strength training. Certainly, that's going to help you a lot when it comes to I myself have to exercise every day with the amount of clients I have to see and listen to their problems. I realize that I have to exercise in order to stay resilient. All right, now we're going to the nice part. I think so. It's the breath work and meditation. I'm not sure if you're seeing me because I'm not seeing myself, but I'd like now for us to get a glimpse or hints on how we go about calming ourselves down during this pandemic and in our intimate relations. Okay, with your feet flat on the floor, your spine straight, put your hands at your waist with your thumbs touching your lowest rib. Good. Palms facing the floor with the eyes closed. Take a deep breath in and let go. Another deep breath in and relax as you breathe out. Now breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And relax. We know we're going to be doing a brief meditation. So with your feet flat on the floor still, and your spine straight in a dignified position, your hands in your lap, with your palms facing the ceiling, and your eyes closed. Take a deep breath in, and let go. Another deep breath in, and relax. Now be aware of your surroundings. Notice the sounds around you, the ambient sounds around you. Take a deep breath in. Now let go slowly. Let the tension out of your body as you breathe out slowly. Now notice your body. The weight of your feet on the floor. Notice the weight of your buttocks on the chair. Observe the weight of your hands in your lap. When you're just born, you weighed maybe 7 pounds, 8 pounds, 9 pounds. But look at your weight, your present weight. You're over 140 pounds. So much has taken place, so much growth. And at some point, we'll all pass on. Notice your mood right now. Are you distracted? Happy? Sad? Anxious? Whatever feeling you have right now, welcome it. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Anything you resist, persist. So welcoming all emotions. Now, observe your thoughts right now. Don't get caught up in them, just observe them. So, in your intimate relationships, learn to listen. See how much time when you're listening to your partner, that you get distracted. So, when you develop long listening, listen for longer and being more attentive. Then develop deep listening. See how much you can connect with your partner, how your partner is saying what they're saying. Feel their emotion. Support them through that as you combine your emotion with theirs, connecting. Take a deep breath in. And let go. One more joyful breath in with a gentle smile on your face. Now let go. Relax. Your in-breath energizes you. Your out-breath relaxes you. Now we're getting ready to get out of the meditation, so be aware of your surroundings again. Be aware of your breathing. And so when you're ready, before you open your eyes, prepare that your attitude is going to be positive. You're going to be peaceful, thankful, grateful, appreciative. So now open your eyes slowly, your joyful eyes, your thankful eyes. Thank you for being good participants. I'm finished.
Thank you, Dr. McGill. I really enjoyed that meditation just now. And I do like the mindfulness that you attach to every part of life, really. You just, you spoke about even eating and sleeping and even going back to the basics of especially when it comes to relationships and our self-care within relationships and our mental wellness within relationships. And just even having those basics, the sleeping, the eating, the exercising, those basics, those foundations. I mean, that's important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is everyone with us? Dr. Richard Adderley, Dr. Ina Trotman, Noemi. I would just like to open up the floor now to, I know we do have about a half an hour left, and I just want to open up the floor to anyone that has any questions. Like I said, feel free to write them in the Q&A box at the bottom, and we will try to answer them, or the panelists will try and answer them rather. I have one here. I'm assuming this maybe for Dr. Trotman, but we can, I will put it to you guys. So the person says, we see with the domestic violence pandemic within COVID that many abusers are actually members of the police force who are mandated primary responders. As an advocate who has been working for a domestic violence hotline during the pandemic, I have had 5 calls from survivors reporting that their abusers is a senior officer and no action has been taken against them as the responding officers are of junior ranks. Maybe this is for Richard Adderley, Dr. Richard Adderley. I don't know, but any of you can answer, feel free. Any suggestions as to how this institutionalized impasse can be overcome?
Well, let me just, I can start off. It's interesting that this topic came up because my colleagues and I at BPA, Bahamas Psychological Association, were discussing on the weekend, are there services in place for members of the armed forces? And we know that many of them, the police, the defense force, the prison, customs, they experience a tremendous amount of stress on a day-to-day basis, dealing with COVID, dealing with criminal activities. There's a lot of stress out there. There's a lot of concern for their own safety. And the issue is that who do they turn to when they need help? And it has been my understanding that there's relatively very little being offered in terms of employee assistance and wellness, prevention, taking care of yourself. So you have situations where people are frustrated. They go out all day, they come home, and the fact is that who do I take my anger out on? My family. And I think Sue Fairclough, as she indicated, has witnessed and experienced the calls from persons who have been victims. And so this goes into our talk that we had earlier about prevention efforts. And we must ask, what are we doing? Should we be doing something? Should the employers, should national security be looking at putting in place some opportunities, some avenues where members of the armed forces can get help? So this is worth the talk.
Yes. Anyone else wants to add anything?
In fact, let me just add something that just came to mind. Last year, just after Hurricane Dorian, and I'm not gonna just run on with it, but it was an amazing time for me as a psychologist because I heard the stories of police officers and defense force officers who were stationed on Abaco when the hurricane hit. And in the sort of debriefing that we did with them afterwards, I heard grown men who had been on the police force for 20, 30 years who just suddenly broke down and cried because they were so afraid. And I remember one particular police officer saying to me that I am supposed to be taking care of persons. And here it was, I was so afraid that I couldn't even take care of me and my family. And I think from time to time, we have this view of the police officer as having everything together. And my class did a research project recently, and they were trying to look at, is it the work of police officers that cause them to be aggressive and violent, or do persons who are aggressive and violent end up in the police force, which meant for a very interesting conversation. But so I'm going to turn it over to the other panelists. That's just my feeling that there needs to be some prevention. There needs to be some counseling included at the national security level for those officers who are out there on the front line and need some help.
Yes, I do agree. Yes, because you speak about mental wellness within the workplace, but workplace also includes the police force, security,
Yes.
the army, that
The
sort of
national security, yeah.
People don't realize that that is also a workplace.
It's a workplace,
Trying to just remove it from workplace organizations and think of it as its own thing out there. But yes, very much a workplace too. Dr. McGill, did you have something to add? I saw your mic going.
Well, now I'm just thinking of the concern of the questioner. I'm thinking what the solution would be is to, do report it. You still have to report the what's happening. No, but I'm thinking also that there are groups, usually there are groups that I know in Jamaica that deals, service groups that deal with issues of domestic violence. And there has to be ways that we can circumvent, we don't always have to go through, say, the legal or or through the police force in order to get this thing resolved. I'm thinking finding creative ways of solving the problem, speak with someone, speak with a counselor, speak with a good counselor who is willing to look at the problem in a very comprehensive, holistic way and to show you ways and means of addressing the abuse.
Yes. I guess it's a tricky thing when you think, being, if we're relating back to this question and being within the police force, how do you go and seek a counselor and then you're almost putting yourself at risk and your job at risk because you're now going, because it's for somebody above you in ranking. For me, that sounds a bit more intimidating than just going to a boss in a regular organization, rather than within a police or army security setting. But yes, we do have another question. Meditation and mindfulness is often the last thing on my mind of many busy people. Even when there is little to do, how can we encourage this activity and get persons to see its importance?
Meditation and mindfulness it's so simple and yet so very difficult. It takes discipline, self-discipline, to first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Yeah. So I've been meditating for quite a number of years. A minimum of 20 minutes first thing in the morning as you wake up. I go into my pause and begin my 20-minute. And just before I go to bed, I do the same thing as well. It's so important to remember that you're breathing, especially in trying and difficult, challenging circumstances. Very important that you do that. And you see, one of the important aspects of mindfulness is self-compassion. Sometimes you're going through a rough patch and you need to take care of yourself. You need to say, hey, Sydney, just remember that there's still food in the fridge. The light bill is paid, and the house is not it's in good order. Yeah, so things are not all as bad as you might be thinking. So you do a fair amount of self-compassion, and also remember to be mindful. You can start doing that by doing little things like, for example, brushing your teeth on one leg. So or because you're now focused to just focus on thinking about brushing your teeth and not brushing your teeth as an automatic reaction while you're thinking about something else. Or when you go into the bathroom, once you close that door, your thoughts should only be about what's in the bathroom. Yes. And it takes a while. It takes, like every discipline, it takes a while to develop and, for it to become second nature. So I would say to you, just keep going, keep going. And you won't, over time, you'll be surprised to see it becoming more and more of a habit to be remembering that you're breathing and to be mindful. And listen, it's so important that because you become less stressed under trying circumstances. Once you're learning, you're doing it well, you're able to observe yourself being afraid or having doubts or reacting, and you can then check all of that. Yeah.
Yes. No, I agree. I guess it's about practice, right? Just with anything, it's we have to practice so that it can become a part of our norm within our daily lives. But I like the example that you gave with brushing your teeth, because often I don't even think of I think so many things are going through my head when I am brushing my teeth. But
Yes.
that is something that you do get to do alone in your bathroom, that you can just take those few minutes to just have that mindful practice doing.
Right.
And I like the application of that in doing something. So you might not be able to sit and breathe for a few minutes, depending on what your household is like or your surroundings are like. But everyone brushes their teeth, right?
Mhm.
So we can just use that. I like that a lot. Thank you.
I think one of the challenges that I experience is that getting people to understand that meditation and relaxation actually works. I think a lot of times our clients come in with the mindset they want an instant fix, they want instant gratification.
Yeah.
Give me something that's going to make me feel better right now. And so when you say to them that, look, the more you practice this, the easier it's going to come. It's going to be more accessible. It's going to work. And they look at you and it's like, I paid my money and that's what he's telling me to go and just relax. And so, but I love, but it
But it
works,
works.
And
Yeah.
and the persons who actually implement it, the clients come back, and I asked them, "Is it working?" And they said, "Yeah, initially it didn't appear to work, but I've been using it. I've been using it over and over, and it seems to be working." And so the thing is that how do we get them to stay engaged long enough so that they begin to see signs of it working?
Yes, I agree. And you hit the nail on the head, because we are telling them about, just go breathe, basically. And they're like, what?
Yeah, I paid $50 for someone to tell me to just go breathe.
What I do like to do as a practitioner, I like to leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end of my session with some clients, and I just do the practicing of that breathing or the meditation part of it, or mindfulness breathing part of it, within the session, so that they know then how to conduct when they're on their own. So that's my way of at least knowing that they get it in as well.
There is there's a program that I've been involved with quite some time. The name of it is The Art of Happiness. I think the name of the institution is the Art of Living, but it has a program and the Art of Happiness.
Okay.
Once you go through that program, and it's I'm sure it might very well be in Barbados, but certainly in Trinidad and Jamaica and a number of other Caribbean islands, including Guyana, that you do a 3 or 4 day evening course. And then after that, you can join early morning or in the evening to do these practices with them, other people doing it all over the world. So you join and you can actually interact with them if you want to. Yes. So you do have this, social aspect of it too, which encourages me to, okay, it's time. 5 o'clock in the morning, they start. And it lasts for an hour and a half, but I really can't spend an hour and a half. To spend an hour and then I leave and go jog. Yeah. Or if I miss the morning, then I do it in the evening at 5 p.m. So there are play ways, and with Zoom, we can, get so much done. Distance is not a problem. Yes.
Yes, I do agree. We do have another question. Does the panel see this as a useful employee support for the police and other work groups groups.
I think he was referring to employee assistance programs.
Maybe, yes.
Yeah. And for the first time, we have a police inspector who is also a psychologist, who is on, I think he's treasurer with the Bahama Psychological Association, which gives us an insight into the lives of the armed forces. And yes, I fully agree. I think that was Lionel Remy who asked the question. I fully agree that having an EAP in place for the armed forces is indeed necessary.
Yes, I guess within a lot of organizations too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
One more. Oh yeah, sorry. Go on.
In Jamaica, JCF, Jamaica Constabulary Force, they do have a full-time psychiatrist. And they also have quite a few trained psychologists who work from parish to parish. So, like even last week, I asked the senior superintendent of police in St. Anne, how are things going with your men and women? And he says, fine, they have their own counseling thing, and everything seems to be going okay. But what I was trying to do, I was asking him that because I wanted to be able to help the inmates in the lockups. So we're trying to get like punching bags and find a room for them to work out some of that anxiety instead of just sending them back out there in the communities to wreak havoc.
Yes. Thank you. We do have another one here. How do parents manage to get in time for self-care when they're working from home, their children are home doing homeschooling, everything is kind of hectic. 20 minutes in the morning after you wake up, it's almost a luxury for young parents. I think that might be geared towards you, Dr. Trotman. Oh, you just might want to unmute. There you go. Can we unmute Dr. Trotman, please? Oh, there you go.
Right. You can hear me now, yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's an excellent question, isn't it? And it is one that parents, certainly in the Caribbean, struggle with. How do you balance working outside of the home? Maybe that's less now outside, but that work has now come into the home. How do you manage that with being a mother, being a wife? And I think it goes back to all that we have been saying so far. Only you can find that time and make that time available. It comes back to loving yourself sufficiently. Some people may say it is taking a selfish moment, if you like, to say, this is my time. In the absence of that, you're going to always be doing. We all have to make time for ourselves. And that might be in the bathroom. It might be when you're brushing your teeth and having that mindfulness moment. But certainly as we have our daily ablutions, I mean, that is an excellent time, isn't it? To take a little bit longer, to make time for yourself. And where we are not in the Caribbean restricted to the extent that people in the North are restricted, I think the possibility exists for being outdoors with your family.
Mm.
But whilst you're outdoors with your family, even within that, as the children are playing or walking on the beach or whatever, you can grab some time for yourself as you know the children are playing or what have you. But I think it comes back to making sure that you prioritize you for some part of the day, because only you can do that. No one is going to say, Mom, Dad, take some time, because we're usually taking care of people who are dependent on us to some extent. So carving out that time for ourselves, I think it is something that we must do and guard jealously and implement.
Yes, no, agreed. And I'm assuming if you're a single parent with really young children, it might just be only 2 minutes in the bathroom, but that 2 minutes might be so precious to you.
I want to share
Or you have
something
them
with
come
you.
knocking.
I want to share something. When the pandemic hit back in March, I had 3 university students who had to return home.
Yeah.
And then, so they returned to what was supposed to be an empty nest, but we also have my wife's 2 nieces who are with us. And so can you imagine March, April, 3 university students who have to turn in assignments, a primary school student, a high school student, and then both my wife and I are working from home. And so, of course, I had to increase internet bandwidth.
I could imagine.
We had to work in one room to save electricity, because, see, all of these things were relatively new. But what was exciting for me was that after I began to notice how often my wife chewed a candy, cracked the candy or chewed gum, and we're working next to each other, and it's irritating the daylights out of me. But I began to look forward to Saturday mornings, because Saturday mornings, essential workers were allowed to go to the food store.
Lovely.
And I would get up early on a Saturday morning, 7 o'clock, get dressed up. And I would spend 2 to 3 hours in the food store just checking out every item. But the thing was that after 2 or 3 hours of being out of the house, I got back home and I felt like, wow, like I had been on a vacation. And so as Dr. Troutman said, it is so important to carve some time out and just I looked forward, and I saw the same people every Saturday morning in the food store, and they were doing the same thing. And I realized that we were all in this together, that we were finding time to just get away from the hustle and bustle of having to work at home. So I agree with her fully.
I completely agree too, and I'm also guilty of that, especially with this supermarket trip. It would be nice if Dr. McGill maybe lended to some of, because this is tying in, so everybody's tying in so nicely here. Dr. McGill, maybe you just lend to what that is, or what that means for within the intimate relationship. And us needing time away from our partners. Yes, we need time from the household too, but even just time away from the partners, because like Dr. Adderley said, just hearing the gum chewing, which is something he probably never knew or never knew that would annoy him.
You know, I'm thinking that this is all in a sense artificial, in that it's something that we would rather not do, but we just have to do it. We just have to be in the same space. So there is some amount of resistance, even if it's unconscious resistance, because this is not what we really want to do, but just that it is necessary to do it. And so once you have that conscious or unconscious resistance to being in that space, it certainly is creating tension. You see, and so with the tension comes the irritability. Yes, and I'm thinking this is such wonderful opportunity for mindfulness, for being aware of how you're reacting, because normally you choose where you are, not, and so it will be silence or not chewing gum or cracking candies, or because you have had the choice. Then no, if you're mindful, you can, instead of resisting the cracking sound, you can make that cracking sound something okay, another crack. Give me one, two. Let us crack together. Join.
I think the period just before going to bed should not be underestimated.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you're insomniac. Most of us who work very hard would say, well, I just want to go to bed. But that period before you get into bed to sleep can be your time. So maybe spending even 10, 15 minutes before you get into bed to practice some of the things that have come up in this discussion, the mindfulness, the relaxation, the focusing on yourself before you get into bed. It doesn't have to be a long period. I think that is a point in the day that, might just work for some people, not all.
I do agree.
For some people, it just might work.
Yes, I do agree. And then thus making us more productive at work the next day, right? If we have that little time to have that self-care. But thank you, Dr. Trotman, Dr. Adderley, and Dr. McGill. I am going to hand over now to Noemi, the president of our society, just to make some closing comments. I know we are coming up to the time. Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Great host.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daya. As it often tends to be, we're now kind of warming up to, a lively discussion. And here it is. The time is ticking. Obviously, we have places to go to, beds to go to, having those, that time, that quiet moment before we go to sleep. To ourselves. I am really appreciative of how, everybody came together today and gave of their time. I really would like to thank the panelists, Dr. Richard Adderley, Dr. Ina Trotman-Jemmett, and Dr. Sydney McGill, in order of appearance today, for having shared some of their experience, some of their knowledge, some of their ideas and comments in terms of how we can all take care of ourselves, in different environments, be it at work, be it at home with our families or within our intimate relationships. Thank you, Dr. Daya, for having seamlessly assisted with the moderating. I appreciate that. I would really also like to thank all of the members of the executive committee and all of the members in general of the Barbados Society of Psychology who have supported me along this process and have supported this week of activities so far as well. And I would like to thank all of the other participants who have come out this evening. When I say come out, wherever you may be at the moment in front of your screens. Yeah. But, there again, for having shared a listening ear and shared your comments and your questions with us. So that is very much appreciated. Also to those who have followed us on live YouTube. Very much appreciated. Please do not hesitate to continuously reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook, Barbados Society of Psychology. You can find us on Instagram, and you can email us as well at psychologistsbarbados@gmail.com. Please do not hesitate to also share further questions to our esteemed panelists, Dr. McGill, Dr. Trotman-Jemmett, Dr. Adderley. If you don't have their direct contacts, please, direct those questions or comments to us, and I'll be happy to forward them on as we hopefully will continue to stay in touch. So at this point, I see, has there another question come up? No, okay. So without further ado, I wish everyone to stay safe physically, stay safe mentally, stay safe spiritually. By that, I mean, take care of yourselves. If you still have to drive on the road, drive carefully. If you have to walk on the road, walk carefully. And if you're home already, do enjoy the rest of your night, and have a blessed one.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.